Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here. Today I want to chat with you guys and gals about something that I always find interesting. As someone who has lived a fitness lifestyle for decades, been a coach a long time, a serious lifter for a long time, is that people get hung up on these really strange cultural ideas. Okay, and then they don't understand that this is literally sometimes derailing their goals. And in other words, if we're going to eat a healthy, balanced diet, we should eat a healthy, balanced diet. Like our diet should not be built around whatever cultural constraints are around us. And, unless we are physically forced to do so. In other words, right? Okay, maybe your grocery store has certain things. Okay, I get it, right? Maybe you live in a specific country and they only sell certain food products. And so I get something like that. But here's an example of what I mean. Americans are really bad about this idea that they have to have breakfast foods. Okay? In other words, they're oftentimes struggle with this. And this impacts weight loss. Like I get so many people who are like, man, I'm struggling to lose weight. I can't lose the body fat I need to lose. And then you start looking at what they do and they're like, you look at their breakfast and they're like, they're just eating garbage. Like your breakfast is either full of tons of refined carbs with huge amounts of fat, or even if it's lower fat, you're eating ridiculous amounts of refined sugar. And they're like, what do you mean? These are breakfast foods. Like, no, these are junk foods. And I'll give you examples. Like, they're like, well, I have to have cereal. It's like, why? So I try to get this healthier cereal. Then you look at it, I'm like, it's still a huge amount of refined carbs and refined sugars. Okay, so keep that in mind. Like, even these healthy cereals, this is not healthy. These healthy cereals are very, very frequently just junk food. And then you look at what's in them and it's like, yeah, this is ridiculous. Like you start looking at it, they're like, but it's got free range organic cane sugar. I'm like, yeah, we just call that table sugar, dude. There's no difference. You didn't really do much better than just grabbing the same Lucky Charms you were doing before. Or even worse, it's still full of refined sugars, but they're organic. Okay, like this has any meaning whatsoever. So they're just buying a really expensive junk food that's got a healthy label slapped on it. Okay, instead of saying, well, and I would look at them and say, well, what would you eat for lunch? And then they might give something healthy. I'm like, so why can't you eat the same thing for breakfast? And people don't seem to grasp it, like, because I have to have breakfast foods. Or they're like, I need bacon, eggs, and toast. And it's like, okay, I mean, I can see eggs. Eggs are great, but bacon, not exactly a health food. And most of these low carbers who eat tons of bacon are still fat. They're fat and out of shape, the majority. So I don't think this is your solution. Let's set aside the other problems with it. Like, bacon is not a health food. So then they're going to eat bacon and they're still eating a refined carbohydrate, a processed food like bread with all the bacon. I'm like, you don't think that this is causing part of the problem? Okay? You don't think this is part of the problem? And people can't get it in their heads that there's no reason to eat these specific breakfast foods. Like, you don't have to have breakfast foods. Like, your body doesn't operate in this way. And some traditional breakfast foods that we've culturally done are for people who were working very hard manual labor jobs, right? People have sedentary jobs now, but the other thing is, but that was their breakfast. It doesn't mean that they're eating a bunch of other garbage later in the day, which is then what the people are doing. Okay. But for someone who is not working manual labor, this whole idea of bacon and eggs for breakfast, with this ridiculous amount of fat from the bacon and then throwing extra carbohydrates in on top of it, that's for people who are about to go work out in the fields. Are you going to be working out in the fields as a farmer or something? Are you going to be a construction worker? Like, what are you doing? And if you're not doing that, then why are you eating a breakfast for people who have physically demanding working class jobs? Culturally is where that came from. Well, that's why you're fat. you're not burning through thousands of calories in a manual labor job and eating a breakfast that was originally intended for that. But then what we do now is worse. Like we eat way worse versions. Okay, this is a problem. And so what I would say to people like, well, what should I eat for breakfast? I'm like, I don't know what to eat for lunch. We're like, well, I eat chicken, rice, and a broccoli. Well, why can't you have that for breakfast? What? I'm like, yeah, why aren't you eating protein for breakfast? Like if you're really serious about your body composition and being lean, you should be eating a huge amount of protein with your first meal of the day. And if you're not, then don't tell me that you care about your body composition, because you clearly don't. Anybody who's lean and fit almost always eats a massive amount of protein with breakfast. So I'm like, why can't you have chicken with your breakfast? Why can't you have a lean steak? So, if you're doing a more carbohydrate rich diet, why can't you have chicken and rice for breakfast? Like, what is physically stopping you? If you're doing a lower carb approach, okay, why can't you have steak, eggs, and vegetables for breakfast? Or even a steak and vegetables? Like, what is stopping you from doing that? Do you not enjoy steak? But then of all things, it just seems weird for breakfast. Why does it seem weird for breakfast? Because traditional breakfast foods that people are thinking of are intended to give you a massive amount of calories for manual labor. And when you eat really high protein, it makes you less hungry. So that's why some people are like, well, it feels less appealing. Like, right, but you'd also eventually get abs instead of being fat if you did it this way too. People have to lose these weird cultural ideas, because that's a big part of it. Yes, you're going to have a dramatically different energy turnover of intake and output if you eat a massive amount of protein for breakfast. Yes, absolutely. No, you're not going to eat as many calories either if you do that. But that's kind of the idea. Okay, that's actually kind of the idea. Again, unless you have these demands, right? Are you going to actually burn through the energy? Probably not. And even then, there's healthier sources of energy than bacon or cereal. There's a lot healthier stuff you can do to fuel your body if you need calories. There are healthier fats or healthier carbohydrates. You don't need these breakfast foods. Breakfast foods themselves tend to be the most fattening stuff that most people are eating. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I'll talk to you guys and gals next time.